And tell us just a little bit, because I'm sure the audience maybe isn't super familiar what QFloors is and QPro, kind of a new call it product, as well as maybe even a company evolution. Maybe talk a little bit about that just to give them some context for today's conversation before we start getting into the weeds around the technical side.
Sure. QFloors just celebrated their 25th anniversary a month ago, and they do enterprise resource planning software. That's what runs the core business for the flooring industry and home improvement. QFloors is on-prem, but QPro is a web application that will replace QFloors.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And then when we spoke at one point, like any application that's growing, there becomes a need to kind of move quicker, right? Maybe talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you experienced early as the technology was kind of taking off on, say, the SaaS side. How did that evolution come up where you knew something had to be changed? How did you convey that? I think the audience might be interested in kind of hearing that story.
Yeah, this is coming from the CEO of QFloors, that C++. It was completely different technology stack. He had never done a web application. A lot of this was us working together and him allowing our team to be innovative. So what I did, it started off as a very small team, but I would go to meetups. I would meet with people that have done something like this before, because I think sometimes that's the best way, is to find someone that's done this before. Now, I will say there isn't truly anyone that's done this before, because we have a small team and a smaller budget than the majority of ERP software. So we were working under that constraint, but with that, I had time and I had flexibility to present things that I think we should try. And one of the things that I could tell early on was that the philosophy of the CEO was not going to work in our environment. It was actually slowing us down to not have a full testing suite. I think the CEO, over the years of 25 years in business, they had beta testers. So they were able to not push everything out to everybody, but the CEO was of the philosophy of make it work, then make it work better. But they had customers that understood that. But with and I would even say our current customers, we didn't have a repertoire with them. They were newly coming onto the software program. So if it doesn't work well, that is not going to be a good approach. So there were these kind of little things that I started to see. The approach that was done in the past, that was a different world and maybe a different clientele and where we talk to people one-on-one. Web application, it's a cheaper product, it's a monthly subscription. It has a different whole idea. We're not one-on-one with our customers all the time like QFloors was. So this idea of just pushing it out and getting people frustrated, I was like, this isn't going to work. As we were developing QPro, we did have a subset of customers that were our beta test. Like, they understood if they were going to use QPro, they were going to help us test. But even then, imagine you're using this for your business. How frustrating if it's not working. And I saw that frustration, and that these were businesses that didn't have a lot of margin to kind of mess around like some of our other customers did. This was like a one person trying to keep a store, and I'm like, we can't frustrate this type of a customer. So it was a little bit back and forth, but eventually the CEO came to see that not only was it slowing down our development process, but it also, in the end, it was frustrating customers.
How much of your argumentation was around the empirical side and like, hey, this is the amount of bugs we've had, et cetera, versus just kind of reasoning?
I mean, my responsibility is to tell the CEO when I get to roadblocks for
Yeah.
development. And I think he agreed that testing is important. It was a different development team that he used when he was doing his software. And for those, I'll just let you in, he was the sole developer in the beginning, and he's an amazing software engineer. But when you have a sole developer doing that over 25 years, that's different than when you have a team of 11. And then I showed within a couple months of implementing Usetrace, not only was I a happier person because I wasn't stressing so much, but he saw that it completely sped up the development process. It was a way more stable product. I mean, that was, almost 7 years ago, I want to say. We've never looked back. But the biggest thing I noticed at first was I didn't realize until a few months in, but that you could upload Excel files. And even when we restarted the test, you put it in a certain area where you can upload it, and then you can bring in that data. Or that's a big part of our software, is importing data to then test and make sure that it imported correctly in several parts of our program. So that saved us a lot of manual testing.